Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the 2010 version of Robin Hood, starring Russell Crowe, Kate Blanchett, William Hurt, Matthew McFadden, Mark Strong, Oscar Isaac, Scott Grimes, Kevin Durant, Alan Doyle, Danny Houston, and Max von Sydow, directed by Ridley Scott. Now, I remember going to theaters for this thing, and is it as good as I remembered? Because I remember a lot of people were giving it crap, and I was kind of one of the defenders of this movie. But we'll see how this goes. Let's get into it. We start in Nottingham, where times are tough for the poor civilians, while the rich is collecting from the poor. Where Marion Loxley, whatever the hell her name is, played by Kate Blanchett, is getting robbed by some people who are taking horses from her and her father, Sir Walter Loxley, played by Max von Sydow, and we move on to the year 1191, and we get introduced to Robin Longstride, played by Russell Crowe, along with Alan Adale, played by Alan Doyle, Will Scarlet, played by Scott Grimes, and Little John, played by Kevin Durand, fighting for Lionheart King Richard's army, or as Richard the Lionheart, played by Danny Houston, is their king. And who are these characters? And I don't know what the hell is going on as we start the battle with a battle sequence on Robin and Marion. And is that all this movie is, despite the cinematography is once again the best thing about the movie? Despite I don't know what I'm watching. That's not a good sign. Eleanor of Aquitaine? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please forgive me. Played by Eileen Atkins, walks into a room with Prince John, played by Oscar Isaac, having some nude fun with Isabella of Angoulême, played by Leah Sado. And don't worry, this is PG-13, so they won't go that far. As Eleanor unless you're for Titanic. As Eleanor tries to give them both advice as they don't accept it. And honestly, I don't like any of these characters as they're terribly despicable in their own ways. While Richard walks around and sees Robin playing a game with a stranger where he has three choices to find a small rock or pebble, as the Frank picks poorly and Robin says he loses and punches the Frank until Richard comes in and gets him and his lads punished by being taken prisoner to be judged after ending the siege. And the acting in these scenes are poor. And we move on to a different place and we get introduced to Godfrey, played by Mark Strong. And when he shows up, the score with his name is my favorite part of the movie, and so is the end credits score at the end credits. And that's the only compliment other than the cinematography, and I'm going to give it one more. As the movie throughout, and there's some spectacular shots, and that's the only three I can think of as far as compliments are concerned. We continue to be in war of some kind, as the battle sequences were endless throughout the movie, as this is not the Lord of the Rings exciting at all, but it goes on way too long as King Richard is killed, and Robin, Little John, Will, and Alan get out of captivity while Marion fights the system of payment while being interrupted by a church by a bishop of some kind named Friar Truck, played by Mark Addy. And we move on to another battle sequence, and they try to ambush Godfrey. As Robin, Little John, Alan, and Will come in after killing Sir Robert Loxley. They kill him, and by they, I mean Godfrey, who happens to be related to Walter and Marion. And Robin tries to kill Godfrey, but the others got his men. But Robin leaves a scar on Godfrey's face, but unfortunately misses the shot. And they get a message to deliver from Robert to give to Walter and Marion by giving him his sword. And this movie is all over the place. There's too much extended battle sequences that takes way too freaking long. As this is a 2 hour and 20 minute plus 15 minute, if you watch the director's cut, long movie. But either way, it's too long, and like Kingdom of Heaven, it's absolutely unnecessary. Marion does charge around the house and talks with the sheriff of Nottingham, played by Matthew McFadden, or whatever the hell his name is, from Deadpool and Wolverine from recently, about how poor Walter is, while Prince John is demanding her to pay up while they're very poor. And Robin delivers news about King Richard's death, and he, along with Little John, Alan, and Will, go on a boat with Robin to deliver the message for Robert as they get drunk and they arrive to England. How did Russell Crowe get cast in the role of Robin Hood? as he doesn't seem to fit the role well enough, in my opinion, as he's terrible in this movie, as is everybody else's in their roles. Robin comes up to Eleanor, telling her King Richard is dead now, and now Prince John becomes King John, as King John almost pays Robin a reward for bringing the news, but he decides to not pay him anyways because of his father owing some kind of money to the crown. And King John finds Godfrey as Robin walks away, and Godfrey stares at him, talking with William Marshall, played by William Hurt, as Godfrey wants Robin gone, as they travel to where Robert was from, which is Nottingham. And their story is so far poorly told by director Ridley Scott, and I wish that this was better told by him, which it's not. Godfrey's men attacks Robin, Little John, Alan, and Will, and they get out of there alive while King John chats with Marshall and Eleanor with wife Isabella, and Godfrey on his side to explain how his ruling is going to go. And King John comes off despicable, just like any character in this entire damn movie, to Eleanor as she slaps King John and gets rid of Marshall from his kingdom, while Godfrey follows him out as he's victorious by letting Marshall go as Robin and his lads go to Nottingham. He talks with Friar Tuck and about to talk to Robert's death, as he asks who to talk to about Robert's death to. And he says Marion and Walter as he tells them the message that Robert is dead, as well as give him the sword. And there are some nice shots, but at this point, I'm kind of bored with the movie while Robin acts polite, and I don't get polite out of Russell Crowe at all. Walter makes Marion marry Robin without involving a priest, and they pretend to be, I'm not too sure, as she sleeps somewhere on the ground, as Marion sleeps alone, and Robin with Little John, Alan, and Will do stay with them in Nottingham, as they're welcoming while some of them are dancing, and nothing is really happening, as this movie is kind of boring in my opinion. Godfrey calls upon someone and kills many men, while Marshall gets a note from Godfrey. Meanwhile, Robin approaches Walter and have a private chat while Marion shows them around the place, and Robin introduces Marion to Little John, Will, and Alan, as Russell Crowe and Cate Blanchett don't have chemistry as a married couple. While the shots do look pretty, but so far I'm not enjoying myself watching the movie. Robin meets the sheriff of Nottingham and blocks him from charging the people in Nottingham, as he's quite a help in the town, and Marion slowly falls for Robin as we get another extended battle sequence where Godfrey asks some people to pay or die, and they blow up the gate and burns everywhere and everyone who refuses to pay King John. And Marshall comes to Eleanor, and why is this still going on, as nothing is really happening, and this story is poorly told and needs to be put in, some of these scenes need to be put in the editing room floor. Eleanor talks with Queen Isabella about some enemies King John has and delivers the message to King John while acting violent, and they kiss, which didn't feel believable, and the sheriff of Nottingham receives a note to collect all the payment from the poor, while Robin goes hunting and is approached by some people whom I sounded like natives, but I could be wrong, as I couldn't get what they are until Marion comes in and introduces him to the people in the forest, and they eventually let him go, and Robin teaches them how to fight, and he's not their enemy. And we get back to Marshall and King John visiting him, and notices Marshall is disappeared because of their last conversation, and King John talks about their king as he looks for Godfrey, and Godfrey's minion finds Robin in Nottingham. And can I just move on from this movie, as there's nothing happening at this point on? Little John, Alan, and Will have a dance party while Robin and Walter talk amongst themselves until Marion asks Robin to the dance floor and start falling for each other as husband and wife, as Godfrey shows up and Marshall finds Robin and talks with him and warns him about Godfrey coming after Robin. And this is getting to the point I'm really on the edge of my seat, as Robin's father was killed as he thinks about it, and they prepare to go to war against Godfrey, and a messenger comes in to explain war is coming for them, and Robin takes off with Little John, Alan, and Will to get an army of Godfrey against Godfrey, and they do, and that did feel a little intense for me. King John makes a speech as Robin shows up and wants to speak for Walter, while King John is there for Marshall, about how Walter wants nothing in return and asks for liberty by law, and King John says he'll keep his word until Godfrey arrives at Nottingham and slays people and burns some houses down, and Walter tries to fight Godfrey and is mocked and killed by Godfrey, and Robin should fight him off, and Marion decides to change her last name to Longstride, and Max von Sydow deserved better than this role because he passed away, may he rest in peace. Godfrey burns down Nottingham while Marion gets a stab in, and Robin goes after Godfrey and fights his goons off while Marion lets the children out of a burning building, and they put out the fire and interrogates a man who says they have 2 days to go after Godfrey on a beach and get prepared for the final battle. As Robin and Marion say their goodbyes, and let's just get to the damn end battle sequence because this movie is bad enough as it is. Robin and his armies ride on to fight Godfrey. 2 days' time, and King John joins the fight, and I thought, wait a second, isn't King John working with Godfrey? As that was confusing enough as they get to the beach and start fighting the final battle, and I was having a headache from being confused by this movie. As Marion joins the fight, for one reason, I don't fully understand. Like at one point, Marion knocks down Godfrey as he tries to drown her, but Robin fights with Godfrey, and Robin almost drowns in the water, but he gets back up and aims distantly at Godfrey and gets a bullseye on his neck, and it kills him. And it gets Marion as he puts some air in her mouth and starts smooching, and the other ships turn around, realizing England isn't at war with each other. And Robin saves Marion's life as we get back to the kingdom with King John and Queen Isabella as they make a new law and burns it, and wants Robin, now being called the Hood, arrested for his crimes as they put a wanted sign for Robin as an arrow puts the paper on a tree, and going back to Nottingham to help the poor out, and continues to live the rest of his life with Marion, and he becomes a legend. And the climax was just endless and pointless. And why did I not enjoy myself watching the movie? I'll explain in a rating. I'll give this movie a 3.9 out of 10. The cinematography is well done, but the movie is terribly acted as these characters are despicable in their own way, as the extended battle sequences were endless, to the point it makes the movie too freaking long. And this is a 2 hour and 20 minute plus 15 more minutes of movie if you watch the director's cut, which, like Kingdom of Heaven, is absolutely unnecessary. The shots look great, but it doesn't change how long the movie is, as there's some scenes that should have been in the editing room floor, and the actors were terrible in the roles, and Russell Crowe is terrible in his role. And remind me, how the hell did he get cast in the role as Robin Hood? As it doesn't seem to fit him, in my opinion. I like a couple of spots on the score, but it doesn't change how poorly told the story is, as Ridley Scott can tell better stories than this. And I just don't know what the hell was going on throughout the battle sequences, as this movie was poorly told, and this is a non-recommendation, and this goes from not so exciting Lord of the Rings action to dying down without knowing what in the hell was going on at the end of the day. And I didn't enjoy watching the movie because it was just so boring. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back in a couple of weeks with The Counselor, because I've already done Prometheus before. And until then, live up to the legend, Robin Hood.